Here we go. Okay, yay, we're live again. Let's hope that I don't get an error once it actually gets rolling. Okay, I think we're good this time. Yes, no, maybe, stop glitching. Okay, here we go. Alright, so welcome to the live. Thank you guys for being here so much. If you're in the comments, tell me where you're watching from, and you can hear me and all that jazz. If you're watching on replay, please put replay in the comment section so that I know to come back and answer your questions later. So we'll be talking about doing cookie and cake competitions. I'm going to talk a little bit about doing both kind of, I guess they're both kind of live, but I guess local competitions, if you happen to be local to one or if you travel to one. There's lots around the country. I've been to... Thank you, Kim. Yes, you're watching from my kitchen. You're right across the computer from me. So the closest local one to me is in Austin. I live in Houston, Texas, so the closest local one to me is Austin. That one's really easy for us to get to. It's just a couple of hours car ride away. And so that one's just a very, that's a really good one to go to. I've been going to that one for a really long time. I used to go to one in Oklahoma. That one was at a state fair. I know someone had asked me before about going to state fair competitions, and those can sometimes be can be structured a little bit differently. They are more towards the tasting of things, so just be aware of that. Sometimes they do have decorated cookie and cake categories, but you just need to check the rules when you're entering the competition. That's probably one of the biggest things that we're going to talk about here in a minute, is checking the rules. You have got to read the rules over and over and over again, because that's where a lot of people get tripped up as they're trying to enter a competition. I also go to SoFlo, which is in Miami, Florida, so that one's actually on a plane. So we'll talk about traveling with a piece on a plane, which I know Kim is really looking forward to, because we're going to be doing that at the end of next month when we go to CookieCon. So yes, CookieCon does also have a competition aspect to it. They call it the Sugar Show, and they encourage anyone to enter. They say enter even if you don't think you're going to win, and really that's a good philosophy to have, is that you're not really entering to win. You really are going to be entering to stretch yourself. You need to think about this as competing against yourself and no one else, even though yes, there are first, second, third award placements, and there are numerical scores a lot of times, so you kind of know where you rank. But you really need to think about it in terms of competing against yourself and stretching yourself from year to year. I've also been to the National Gingerbread Competition, which is in Asheville, North Carolina. That one is strictly gingerbread, and those pieces can be up to 2 feet in width, depth, and height. So you usually can't really travel on a plane with that, although I have a crazy enough friend who's actually checked her gingerbread piece before. And so if you want to know more about that, I'll give you her name and you can reach out to her to see how she's done it. I don't know that I'm that brave to do that, but we'll see if the next time I decide to enter that competition. There's also what's called an ACF competition, the American Culinary Federation competition. Those are held all over the country at different times throughout the year in different places. And it's been a really long time since I've competed in that one, but that one, all of the cake must be real. With cookies, this doesn't really matter so much because, well, unless you're talking about structure, but everything has to be edible. But when it comes to cake competitions, a lot of times the big tiered wedding cakes, unless they're sculpted, are styrofoam dummies, because they're easier to decorate and they're easier to travel with, especially when you're coming sometimes internationally. There are also international competitions, and so in that case you would have to fly with it and check kind of some of the restrictions and things in different countries. I have not done an international one before, so that's not one that I can really answer, but I have flown on a plane a couple of times with various competition pieces and pieces in progress. That was for the Food Network Holiday Baking Championship Gingerbread Showdown show that I did last year. I actually baked all of the gingerbread here at home and then checked my bags with baked gingerbread and took it with me to our filming location. And yeah, that's an experience.
Crazy girl.
Kim says that I'm a crazy girl. But I've actually done that twice before. I had a few broken pieces the second time. First time I think it went a little bit better, but second time we did have a couple of broken pieces, but we were able to fix them. So that wasn't so bad. Yes, Kim, can I answer your question?
In that case, how many extras did you bring, and how did you choose the extras?
So I'm not sure if you can hear Kim or not because she was sitting on the other side of my computer, but she asked if I brought any extras, and what was the second part?
How did you decide which ones to bring?
Oh, how did I decide which ones to bring? So we're talking about like kind of two different scenarios here, because what she didn't see on TV is that I actually arrived with broken pieces. Didn't know it till I got to set. Those pieces I did not have extras of. The pieces, one of the pieces that I broke on set that was on camera, I did have an extra piece, and that was just kind of an accident that I had an extra couple of extras, because I wasn't really planning on taking extras, and then I just had them, and Dina accidentally filled it with ice malt, so we were already good to go. Okay, so let's talk about the rules. So every competition is different. They are structured differently. They have different divisions, different categories. So it doesn't matter what competition you're going to enter, read those rules. Print them off because you're probably going to be coming back to them several times during the process. And you're going to want to make sure that you know the answer to the questions that you have when you're coming back to read the rules again. And so it's just really handy to have them already printed off.
She wants to say hi.
One of my cats is trying to say hello. So some of the things you need to really look out for are the size limitations. So like I had mentioned before, the National Gingerbread Competition, it cannot be any bigger than 24 by 24 by 24 inches. And so you want to make sure that you don't go over that. It's not quite that big. Kim's giving me some, yeah, that's about better. Yeah, she's giving me dimensions over here on the other side. But yeah, it's a pretty good sized piece. And so, but this includes any feet that you put underneath the board to kind of lift the board off of the table. That's included in those 24 inches. So be sure that you are measuring sometimes multiple times. It also includes any trim that you put along the edge of the board to cover that edge. So just be aware that anything you do like that will count in those size dimensions. Okay, yeah, so can you grab the SoFlo piece, which is the one kind of on the bottom there. Nope, the one under that. Nope, in between those. There's another sheet there. I know it doesn't look like it. There you go. Kim's being my Vanna today, so thank you very much to Kim for coming to help me do my live. So this is the piece that I took to SoFlo this past year. Yes, I flew on the plane with this. This actually came to CookieCon with me if you were in Ohio. This came to all the way to Ohio with me as well because I went straight there from Miami. But this one is 12 by 12.
Yeah, they could only really see.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Now she's being a good Anna. Ta-da! Ah! So anyways, that one could only be 12 by 12, which for a cookie is really kind of small. And so when I was in the middle of doing that cookie when I realized, oh no, I don't have anything to put it on, and I had to go find something. So I found that 12 by 12 frame to put it in, but I really struggled to find something. So again, be aware of those limitations from the start and try to plan for them. Don't be like me. Don't wait until the last minute to go get your base for your piece. Try to incorporate that in as you're planning out what you're going to make.
So does that include the stands that some people put them on in CookieCon? Or is it just like the frame?
So CookieCon does not have any size limitations. However, theirs is limited to only 6 cookies. And this includes both 2D and 3D pieces. So that one makes it that little rule makes it a little bit tricky in the planning stage, because if you're going to make something 3D, you tend to have more than 6 cookies to do that with. So again, be aware of some of these limitations. They can trip you up, and you don't want to get disqualified when you get to the competition after all that work has been done.
Question.
Yeah.
Did you enter the same piece in Silpho and CookieCon?
No. So when I was younger, I would take the same piece to multiple competitions. But these days I really like to do new pieces, especially because sometimes in the rules, one, it says that you have to bring a new piece that is just for this competition. And two, a lot of times there's a theme that you have to do it to, and so it's not going to fit the theme of the next competition. So you will have to do a fresh piece for each competition. Jennifer, I did not compete in CookieCon in Ohio because I was only there for the happy hour. I was only there for about 24 hours. So I didn't get to stay for that full con. However, we will be there for the full thing at the end of next month, which is just tomorrow.
Crazy.
I know.
Crazy
I'm not ready. I haven't started my piece yet, have you? She's laughing, y'all. She's giving the crazy lady laugh. Like, are you kidding? No. We've had conversations though, so like we've had ideas.
I know what I'm doing.
We're in the phase. Yay, you've picked what you're doing. That's half the battle sometimes.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. I was having thoughts last night, not gonna lie. Okay, so also in the rules, read about what paperwork and in-progress photos you have to submit with your piece. So you, a lot of times the paperwork, I don't fill it out usually until I'm about ready to go, but I do try to type it so that the judges know what I am trying to write, because my handwriting is chicken scratch. So make sure that you have that paperwork with you when you travel to the competition. Print it off early as you're working on things so that you know what you need to be thinking about. A lot of times it asks about theme, description of techniques, how you interpreted your take on the theme, that sort of thing. A lot of times they also ask for in-progress photos. So you want to make sure that you are taking those along the way, because you can't go back and take them once your piece is finished. So make sure that you're taking in-progress photos while you're working on your piece. Oh yes, thank you, Kim, for putting the sugar show in the comments. Can you also link thattakesthecake.org?
Yep.
That is the link for the Austin show. And another thing, it doesn't necessarily always say this in the rules, but don't post to social media while you're, you can post whatever you want to social, just don't post pictures of your piece while you're working on it. Not even, I tend to not even say anything about it at all as I'm working on it, because I am friends with some judges. So I don't even want to necessarily know that I'm coming to the competition, because I don't want them to, be able to pick out my piece and say like, oh, that's hers. And give them any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Persuade.
Yeah, persuasion. Any kind of hint that it's a piece that I have done. So just beware of that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about divisions. Like I said, every competition is different with its description of divisions and their categories. For instance, in Austin, preconceived notions. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tristan. The divisions can run anywhere between 2 to 5 divisions sometimes, and the division is what kind of where you're placed, like beginner, intermediate, advanced, professional, and master. That's usually about how it's laid out. Sometimes they'll put beginner, intermediate together, and then advanced, professional together, and then only have 2. Some are an open category where there is no division at all, so beginners are competing against masters. So again, something to be aware of when you're choosing what category and competition to enter. The categories can range, they're all over the place. I've been to lots of different sugar shows over the years, and they range from any kind of cookie piece. Julia Usher now has her competition in Austin, and it's actually divided into 4 now. So it's divided into 2D construction, 3D construction, and then beginner, intermediate, and advanced masters division. So there's 4 4 different kind of categories, divisions to enter within her competition, which is its own competition at the Austin Cake Show. And then within the Austin Cake Show, there's also the showpiece competition, which means every cake gets its own table. And you have to dress the table that goes with the theme of your piece. So that means you have to do linens and any extra things on the table that you want to help elevate your piece. And then there's the kind of regular competition, which has wedding cakes, tiered cakes. They don't do cookies anymore because Julia does that. Techniques not on a cake, so that can be like flowers or like figure modeling, that sort of thing is what you're looking for those kinds of categories. I feel like I'm missing something. Small bites, excuse me, is usually one that's in there, but it's not, none of this is tasted. There was one time that Julia did ask for the cookies to be tasted, and you had to use the same dough that you used in the construction of your piece, and you also had to provide tasting cookies, and you were scored on that piece as well. Now, in Austin, they also have tasting categories, which are separate from the divisional competitions. And those things, they usually have a theme for that as well that goes kind of with the show theme, and then usually there's candies. I want to say there was popcorn one year, confections, candies, kind of same thing. My husband has gotten into doing the tasting, and my sister-in-law has gotten into doing the tasting competitions. So when we go, they actually get to be part of the show as well, and that's been really fun to watch, as my husband has enjoyed playing with some of the tasting aspects and developing new recipes for going to do this show. But it means he gets to be a competitor too, which I think is really cute and adorable for going with me. Okay, any other questions on categories and divisions? I feel like I sped through that. Staring at Kim, who's not staring back at me, so I'm going to assume that we're good, so we're going to move on.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So deciding what to enter. So a lot of that is going to depend on the theme of the show. So I'm going to reference Austin a lot because, again, that's the one that I've been to for 16, 17 years. I've been going to that one for a really long time. And I've seen it grow and change. So even the same show can change from year to year. Julia has not been with that show the entire time. They have changed the way the tabled competition works sometimes, so they do tweak it every now and then. But as far as deciding what to enter, so again, you want to watch out for the theme. The divisional one at Austin does not have to be with the show theme. However, they do have a special award that they give for who has the best interpretation of the show theme. So you may want to consider that when you're planning out your piece. But like I said, Julia's competition and then the tabled one with the big sculptures and the big wedding cakes, that one does have to go with the show theme. So that's going to kind of direct what you decide to enter. SoFlo is also the same way. So theirs this year was actually was different from last year. Every category had its own theme. Now they all kind of went together if you understood what it was about. So last year we lost a really good chef and sugar friend. His name is Nicholas Lodge. I don't know if many of you know about him, but he taught the International Sugar Collection in Georgia. He taught how to do sugar flowers mostly and a lot of modeling. But to honor him this year, the SoFlo decided to do, his favorite color was green. He always had on a green jacket. Everybody knew who he was. And so every category had something to do with green. So I think there was kind of a Wizard of Oz type one category. The cookie category was Greenery Day in Japan. So that one was kind of fun because I had to do my research about what Greenery Day was.
And that was the one you just showed.
And that was the one that we just showed. So just like I said, all these things are in the rules, and just read them over and over again until you're ready to get started.
Can you go over the ones from CookieCon, because that is probably what
Yeah, sure.
need to know?
Yeah. You want to tell me what they are, and then I can tell tell the folks because I don't remember what they all are.
The amusement parks.
So for CookieCon, the categories are amusement parks, literature, anything goes, and there's one more that I'm forgetting. Mystery shape, which is something that, so that one's a really unique one. I've never done that before. We should try that. Mystery shape is where you're given the shape and they'll have all the materials there at the show. You have to decorate that shape any way you want, and the judges decide who decorates it best, not necessarily to what the shape is, but how creative you can be with that shape. Because you probably won't know what the shape is anyways. And I read somewhere that some who knew what the shape was and they decorated it like that actually didn't do that well because they were looking for what's most creative.
It's like the flips you see on TikTok.
Yeah, it's like doing a cookie cutter flip. So how creative can you be with the shape that you're given? And then there's the linking paper doll cookies, which is a collaboration. This is a non-judged category, which some shows have non-judged categories. If you want to just bring a piece for display, you don't necessarily want it to be judged. But this one is linking paper dolls. You're allowed to bring up to 6, and you can decorate them any way that you want. Family friendly, please.
Some were like the Kiss band. There was like Raggedy Ann, Stranger Things. You can do Toy Story.
Yeah, so you can do any kind of character that you want. So Kim was talking about Toy Story, Stranger Things, Raggedy Ann. What else is she? Kiss. So pick your favorite TV, music, star, or character and cookify them. You can even add or take away a little bit from the shape, just as long as their hands will still be able to link up so that when everyone sets their dolls in a row at the show, they all link up and it looks like one big collaboration. I'm really looking forward to doing that part as well. Okay. Deciding what to enter. Okay, so now that we have our category and we know what the theme is, deciding what to enter, a lot of times I'll peruse Pinterest. That's one of my best friends for figuring out what I want to enter, getting inspired to what I want to enter. And then I just kind of take it from there. Sometimes I've heard people get inspired by, I had a friend that did a piece that was from the Rose Parade. She actually wrote into them and asked if she could duplicate or recreate their float in sugar for the gingerbread competition, and they said yes, and it was really adorable. So I mean, you really never know where inspiration's going to strike. So just keeping an ear and an eye out for things that may inspire you. I have tons of Pinterest boards that are, just for inspirational purposes when I'm getting ready to compete. Again, it will a lot of times depend on what the theme of your chosen show and or category is. Okay, so 2D structure versus 3D structure. So Julia's is, like I said, specifically split into 2D structure, 2D pieces and 3D pieces. Would you grab my other? Yep. Vanna White me the other piece. And there are very specific rules on what that term means. I sort of did a little bit of 3D construction on this, not really, but I did different thicknesses on this piece, and so I wanted to be sure that it, you can't really tell that on camera, but it gives it more dimension than if it was just one thickness of cookies. So the street lamp is super thick, the houses are another thickness, and then the floats are another thickness. So that kind of gave me a little bit to play with in terms of making it 3D, but that did not cross the line into 3D. So 3D means really a standing structure, stacked cookies to make something taller, because you can stack in that a little bit, but not too much.
And as you can see, it's not just the house. She did like the roofs of this house and the shutters and the fence 3D as well.
Yeah, so you can still have it be a little 3D while still being 2D. It just kind of depends on how you structure your piece. But like I said, just be aware of what the rules say constitutes as 3D.
Well, I'm thinking about it. Do you want to talk about what you do your pieces
Sure. So this is a cake board. You can also do it on, so this one was a wrapped one, but you can do it on just the plain cardboards because you're probably going to put something on it. You're going to cover it in fondant or royal icing or buttercream if you're doing a buttercream. How did I forget that one from Austin? There's a buttercream only category in Austin as well.
That one's cool. What is it?
That's one of my favorite. I don't have the buttercream ones. Yeah, they don't last.
I know, but it was so cool.
I'll post some of them in a separate post after I get done with this live. So that one's an example of 2D. This one I'm going to pull out is an example, of 3D. And it just means that it's standing either with the assist of other cookies or
You put fondant on the cake board, right?
it's just it's 3D. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. Yes, you can put fondant on the cake board. So this was the one that I took to Miami last year. And it is, so it's because it's standing, so you can see that this has multiple cookies in it. And it's standing up. That this constitutes 3D. Now, in SoFlo, they do not have different categories for 2D versus 3D, and I'm not sure that they rank them. If 3D gets a little bit higher ranking, I would assume it probably actually does get a little bit higher because it is a little more difficult technique-wise, so you are going to get a few more points for that if you decide to do 3D versus 2D. I'm going to set this over here. We're going to talk about traveling in just a second. Okay, so once you've decided that you're going to do 2D or 3D, you're going to want to determine how you're going to travel with this. So, and actually you probably want to think about this before you start to decide what you're going to enter, because you need to figure out if you're going to carry it on, if you're going to check it, if it's going to go on the overhead. So check with your airline to see what the dimensions are under the seat in front of you, to see what can fit under the seat, because that is the best place for your piece to fly with you. Some airlines, the overhead bins, they don't sit flat when they've been closed. They actually lay like this, and you don't want your piece to be able to fly at an angle, most likely, because structurally something could happen to it. And so you don't want it to have to fly at an angle. You're also risking something bumping into it up there because it's going to be with a lot of other luggage, everyone else's carry-ons, and it's probably going to get pushed around a little bit as people are putting things up there and taking things down, boarding and deplaning the plane. So I have this tote, this plastic tote that I had the motel in. It's nice and sturdy. It'll go through security just fine. I ended up putting it in a bag so I could carry it a little bit easier. Going through security, there's been a couple of places where they've told me that the way that it enters the machine, that it may flip over coming out. And so they've actually said, can we either put it on the other machine to have it go through the x-ray, or can we hand inspect it? Which I was very grateful that they were actually being aware of something that was this fragile that I didn't want to flip over. Again, having it in a clear container is also really good so they can see what it is. And they'll be more likely to take a little bit better care of you as you're going through security, and give you tips like that, so that your piece does not get injured while you're at the airport. Yes. Yeah.
So as someone who has asked for hand-checked things before, because my old EpiPens couldn't be x-rayed, they check you and then they swab it. Have you ever had that? Have they tried to take a piece off of it, just swabbing it?
Yes, I have had it swabbed. Ironically, it was on the way home, so I didn't really care as much at that point. If they decide to swab it, like, they may open the container, they may swab it. That generally isn't going to hurt it any. I think they just swabbed the container. I don't think they swabbed the piece, because generally once you open the container, you can smell the sugar, and so it's not anything else. I would say if you're going to a cake show and you're taking a dummy with you, if it's a styrofoam dummy, you will likely have to check that, or they're definitely going to pull it off and make you open it. So also make it be in a container that's easy to open and then reclose, because if they decide to open it, you're going to need to have a way to fasten it back together, either with tape or just be able to put the lid back on. Because if they do open it, like I said, if you're taking a styrofoam dummy, and this is I would say it's actually kind of risky to take a dummy through security, because it's going to go through the machine. It's so dense, they're going to think it's something else. I've had friends had like bricks of fondant taken from them at the airport as they're flying home from the sugar show. So that's also another thing to check your fondant into your luggage if you're coming home from a sugar show, because they'll think that it looks like an explosive, especially being wrapped in like a silver liner type thing. Yeah, so just be aware of that. I think a real cake will go through just fine. I've flown with a pie before, so that wasn't a problem. Have I done cupcakes? I don't know if I've done cupcakes before.
You did my cookies wrapped in like a box thing too.
Yeah, those were cookies. So those were fine. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what else was in that bag. It was mostly cookies. But anyways, those are the things you need to be aware of if you are flying with a piece. I've never checked. No, that's not okay. That's not entirely true. I have flown with a dummy before, and it was checked, but it was just for exhibition. It was not for competition, so I was not super worried about it. It did come through just fine. I did not have any damage on it. But if you, and this is actually really important for any show that you go to, because you're likely going to have to either drive or fly to any show, take an emergency kit with you. Put all of the icing colors that you've used, like if you have extra icing already made of those colors, bring it with you. If you have something super fragile, like some railings that are transfers, and you may have to make them in the hotel room, ask me how I know this, take the patterns with you so that you can remake them in the hotel room the night before the competition. Also, make sure you are traveling the day before the competition so that you can get your piece entered in a good amount of time. You never know with travel, there may be delays and such. I almost did not make it into the SoFlo show this year because I kid you not, I arrived with 12 minutes left to get it on the table. So also be aware when you're reading those rules as to when it must be on the table by. In SoFlo, it has to be there Friday night. For Austin, it can come in on Friday night or Saturday morning. So again, things that you need to be checking in the rules are when you can put your piece on the table, and if you're doing a large piece, like one of the tabled ones where you need to set up all the linens and everything, give yourself that extra time because you're going to need it to do all the setup and potentially fix some things that may have gotten broken in transit. Even if you're driving, things can happen. You can have to slam on your brakes real suddenly. You may have to go up a really steep hill. The National Gingerbread Competition is at a hotel, which is at...
You froze.
It's one way you enter, you have to go up a really steep hill, and the other way you have to come down a really steep hill. So take your pick of which way you wanna angle your car as you're coming in to the load zone for the competition day. What were you trying to say?
You froze and I did my internet though.
Oh no! Well, it keeps telling me my keyframe rate is too low, but I've closed everything out, so I can't do anything else to help that along.
I can hear you though.
Okay, hopefully we're still going. Okay, so that's traveling with a piece. Did I miss anything? Anything else traveling with a piece? Any other questions? I know you're about to travel with a piece, so.
I'm traveling with you though, so.
Hey, if something happens though, it's not on me.
No, you're going to hear me call, what do I do with this? No, I think for my first travel, I'm playing it pretty safe. So, I'm going to probably not have anything really big 3D. I'm going to wrap it. One thing I would say is we're going from a humid climate to a humid climate, so I'm not too worried about that. But if you're going from dry to humid, because I've done that with my parents, it can change things.
Yeah, anything can happen when you're entering a cake show, so just don't get discouraged, because even at the final hour, things can happen when you're getting it on the table. like Kim said, we're going from humid to humid, so this competition is not going to be changing much. But if you go from a dry to a humid, and actually going the other way too, if you're going from humid to super dry, that can cause a problem too, because it can cause royal icing to chip off of your cookie in some instances. And so you just need to be aware of what the weather is like at your destination. There was one of the Austin competitions. It's in a very big kind of sports arena type place, and they have large doors they open for intake of all of the competition pieces, and it was extremely foggy the morning of competition, and all of that humidity flooded into the building, and the piece that I had put on the table was not super structurally sound, and the lid of my piece collapsed into the box below it before it was ever judged. It was probably less than an hour after I set it on the table that it had collapsed in. So just kind of be aware of things like that as you're deciding what you're going to enter. There are things, I know now, things that I could have done to prevent that. But yeah, just be aware of all of your surroundings. These are things that are not, in the rules, but just kind of be aware of them as you're planning out your piece.
Do you play to play, or do you play to win, personally?
I mean, I'm an only child, so I'm competitive anyways. I do play to win. However, I play to play. Like, I stretch. I like to try new techniques. I like to, can I really do this? It may not be a new technique to the sugar world. It may just be a new technique to me. And so I think competition is a good way to stretch yourself. If you've taken a lot of classes, this is a good time to put some of those new techniques into practice. Because a lot of times the upper tier classes that we sugar artists are taking are not necessarily something that we can sell to our clients. So it's like, why did I take that class? Well, it was for fun. It was for me. But this is a place where you can actually put those techniques into practice. And so that kind of goes along with the entering for the right reasons. Again, you're going to be competing against yourself. You need to think of it as competing against yourself. And so I strive to have a better score every year than I did last year or at the last show. It is going to be different judges likely every year. So it's going to be scored a little bit different. They try not to judge subjectively, but we're all human, so that piece is going to be in it whether we want it to or not. So just be aware of that. And sometimes things may not go your way. You think it may be in the bag, and you don't place at all. Or they only call a first and a third, no second. You can always ask after the show has ended if there's been an error. I've had that happen to me before. And I've also had, and they've put things into places at cake shows to help rectify some of these situations. So now there are numerical scores, not just a first, second, third. So you have a better grasp of how you were scored and what you need to improve on. And so that's another piece of this, is that do it to improve your skills. So they will tell you what you need to work on, especially Julia Usher. She takes a lot of time to do her judging sheets. In fact, we didn't get it until 2 weeks after the competition had ended. It may have even been a little bit longer, because she takes such care in telling us how to improve for next time. So they give you kind of the good with the bad. They always tell you what techniques you did the best, and then what techniques you need to, not necessarily techniques, but what categories of judging you need to do better on for the next competition. And that's how you can do better year over year.
Have they said who's judging CookieCon?
I do not know who's judging CookieCon this year. I know that
I saw something, but I can't find it.
Arlene Chua has done it in the past. I'm pretty sure she's going to be there again. Mike McCary, maybe? I'm not sure if he's done CookieCon, but I know he's done other competitions before. They put out a call for judges for CookieCon just sometime in this last week. So I don't know that they know who's going to be this year.
Are you going to talk about Food Network next?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
I'm getting there. I'm making everyone wait till the end to talk about
I'm just making
more
sure.
about Food Network.
I have my own questions.
Okay.
Even though I have answers, but
I'm almost there, I promise. Okay, so we've done, so don't get discouraged, enter for the right reasons, know what the judges are judging you on. Typically the rules will say what the kind of categories are of their judging and how they're weighted, because that matters too. Some things get weighted higher, so theme is usually about 10% of an overall score, whereas technique, number of techniques, use, and mastery of techniques are usually scored fairly high. So those are things you want to pay attention to as you're making your piece as well. You always want to make it as clean as you can. Of course, time can get the better of us. Us procrastinators out there tend to like to wait until the last minute, but try to give yourself enough time to work on this piece cleanly. Tasting and real versus fake, we talked about that a little bit.
Copyrighted images, because we talked about that.
Yes, you do score much better for originality. I think that CookieCon is going to take that into consideration a bit because of the theme park category that they have. I know when I was there last time, they had quite a few particularly Disney copyrighted things and Harry Potter because they're in the theme parks. And everything that's in the theme park, unless it's generic, is going to be pretty heavily copyrighted. So I think particularly for that category, they're going to not weight originality quite as heavily or rate it a little bit differently when it comes to copyrighted images. But in general, I would say stay away from copyright because you don't want to infringe on that, and you also want to get more points by being original. You can be inspired by something, but I would not ever copy something straight up that is from someplace else.
Could you, what did you call it? Chubbify it? Or like alter the, especially in CookieCon is going to be very different because of the.
Yeah, I think you can not just be inspired by, but if you, and I don't know where the line is of changing the artwork, so to speak, where the line of how much you need to change it in order to not be infringing on that copyright, and I think that's something for lawyers to debate in court, and let's hope we never have to get there. Prizes range from a ribbon, a medal, a plaque, to lots of like supplies, so fondant, cake stands, colors, cutters, kind of you name it. I think I probably won it at one competition or another. Every competition has a little bit different prize package. It usually says in the rules what roughly it's going to be, especially if it's cash or monetary prizes. They will put how much it is, how much is at stake. Some competitions pay better than others. I would say that SoFlo in general pays better than Austin does. Every placement gets money, whereas in Austin, because there are so many categories and divisions, they're not able to put as much money into that. And so in the divisionals, the only way you can really win money is if you win best of division or best of show. Julia, because she's separate, does give money for every placement. I am not sure about the tabled ones. I know first place definitely gets money for each of those divisions, but I'm not sure about the second and third. Generally, there's a prize package, but like I said, in divisionals, there's only ribbons generally if you win first, second, third, unless you win best of division. The money is usually for that competition in divisionals is usually in the special categories, which I talked about, the theme best interpretation of theme. Oh my gosh, why can't I think of it? When you've made a new technique, they highly encourage that. I've actually won that one. The Innovators Award. I've actually won that one twice. Those two are probably my favorite awards I've gotten. They also come with money.
CookieCon is all money, cash.
CookieCon is all money. So it just kind of depends on what show you're going to. I know that I haven't talked a lot about the National Jitterbug competition, but theirs is structured quite differently. The only people that get recognition there, it's one big adult open category. So if you're 18 or over, you're in the adult category regardless. They call out the top 10. There could be 60 entries, and only the top 10 get ribbons, and I believe only the top 3 to 5 get any kind of prize package, which can include money and like hotel stays, classes, etc. Okay, I think that kind of wraps up the, I'm not going to say in-person because everything is in person, but local competitions. I guess now we'll move on to Food Network, which is probably what most people have been waiting for. So I think I had someone ask like how to find like how to cast on a show, how to find the shows, to know when they are casting. A lot of times producers will go into groups, they'll post flyers, so you'll see several. So these shows are filmed 6 to 9 months in advance. Oh, entry fees. Yes, Jennifer, that's a good one. I'll come back to that in just a second. Food Network is filmed, shows are filmed about 6 to 9 months in advance. And so you need to be watching for those in like the spring and early summer for when they're casting for Halloween and Christmas shows. Because the casting process starts that early and they get them filmed that early. One that I did, so Christmas shows I've filmed in May, July, and September, so it's kind of all across the board and it can vary from year to year. But like I said, keep an ear out in cookie groups and cake groups and sugar art groups. A lot of times they'll go in there looking for people to cast. They may also drop into your Instagram inbox or they will email you. Those are real. A lot of people will ask in this group, so I'll kind of know like when it's time for casting. That it's time for casting again because everyone will ask, hey, I got this Instagram message, is it real? Yes, it is real. You will still be filling out the information the same as everyone else. There's a pretty good process that you go through to get cast in these shows. Again, every one of them is a little bit different. Yes, Kim?
I would say if anyone's worried about if it's real or not, click on the page, investigate it, search the email in Google if you're worried about it, because that's the easiest way to figure out if it's fake or not.
Yeah, I'll generally, if I know that it's about time for casting and I'm looking to get on a certain show, then I may Google it, and a lot of times the page where the first application is will come up for me, or I can find it that way. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily click on a link in an email, but just kind of do your Google homework and find it that way. So let me get back to Jennifer real quick about the entry fees. Yes, there are entry fees generally for every cookie competition. Exception is CookieCon. I don't think there is one.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, because there's actually no registration for CookieCon Sugar Show. You just have to be a registered participant of CookieCon in order to enter the show. But you do not have to do a separate registration for that, so there is no extra fee on top of your regular ticket. The Austin Cake Show, there is various fees. They run about $25, $35, and sometimes that covers 1 to 3 entries, just depending. Same goes for SoFlo. I think SoFlo was $35, and I had to buy my ticket into the show on top of that. In Austin, you get a badge which gets you into the show as well, so it kind of depends on how they structure it as to whether or not you have to buy a ticket into the show on top of your registration. And I don't, it's been a minute since I've been to the National Gingerbread Competition. I don't remember if that one had a registration fee or not. If it is, it's generally pretty nominal. It's generally between 25, on the very high end 50. I would say 50 maybe for SoFlo because you have to buy your pass into the show as well. It's usually not too bad. And like I said, the SoFlo one has better prize money, so you're kind of pooling into that prize money, so you may get some of it back. But yeah, that was a really good question, Jennifer. Okay, so we'll get back to TV show casting. So it's a process that generally takes anywhere from 1 to 2 months, maybe a little bit more to go through the whole casting process. There's usually a first stage application. They will call you, they will give you an email back if they're interested in having you move forward, and then there are several additional piece of information you have to fill out, do that. You would generally have a few different Zoom calls with different producers. You may even have to do a tryout piece. You'll probably send in some photos. Both times I did my gingerbread show, I had to do a tryout piece in the casting process so that they could make sure that I could do what I said I could do in the allotted amount of time. So they just want to make sure that you can get it done. That is, like, they're not watching you do it, but they do just want to make sure that, you know, what you say you can do, you can do. Okay, so now I'm going to go through a list of questions that I had submitted before when I was asking if anyone wanted me to do this live. So one of them was, how do you know what you're going to make? You will likely get a theme for your episode, and you will do a sketch of that, and you will submit it to the producers to make sure that not everyone's doing the same thing. So you actually kind of want to do that quickly, because usually the first one submitted of that particular design will be the one that they take, and then on down the line. So in this case, I don't think anyone, this last year when I went, I don't think anyone did anything the same. So none of us had to change our pieces. How do you know the recipe? So I did most of the baking at home. My partner did the baking. And there were some things that we knew ahead of time, so we knew kind of what recipes to have with us, and to be able to kind of change up with last minute additions that we, last minute secret ingredients that we'd have to add to different batters and such. But we didn't know exactly what we were going to have to bake until we were on set. Do they have everything there for you, like even random things? So if you wanted to make something with bacon, they just have bacon there. Do you submit a list in advance? So that depends on the show and kind of what the theme of the week is and what their secret ingredient may be. Obviously, the secret ingredient, they'll have plenty of that for you to work with. They do refill things for you. So like if you run out of powdered sugar, they will bring in more for you, etc. We asked for a cotton candy machine for ours. We ended up not using it, but they did have it there for us. There were some other pieces of special equipment that were asked for as well. So you can submit a list of things that you may or may not need when you're on set. And ingredients, because we also asked for pre-made cotton candy. That's a behind-the-scenes thing for my episode. If you noticed, it looks like there's little puddles. This is coming back to Heather's knife and blood in the emojis of this live. It looked like little puddles of blood on the bottom of our piece, little pink puddles of blood, because we had put cotton candy on there, but it takes a while to go from finishing the piece to judging, which we knew. They told us that we had, several hours in between those two things, but when I tested it at home, I put it on top of dry royal icing, and on set I put it on wet, so it evaporated or melted very quickly and just into puddles of sort of pink blood on our base. Luckily, they didn't give us too much grief for that, and that part never even made it to air. So.
What about people with allergies?
They do ask about allergies when you're in the casting phase. I'm sure that they would have a conversation with you about what that means for you and being on set, because I don't think Cam would have been able to go with me when I went this last time, because our secret ingredient was nuts. We had a nutcracker themed episode, and that was the secret ingredient that we had to include in our bake. So Kim would not have been able to. Can you work with them at all?
I don't.
I know you don't.
I don't know. I don't think I would actually be allowed to do one of these competitions, because most of the time when I see people with allergies, they always make sure there's a nut thing, and I'm like, excuse you.
Like I said, they will ask you about it. I would think, honestly, they would probably cast you on a different episode of the show, because you are given a certain episode depending on when you are able to travel and such. And you would generally not know who you're going to be competing against. How do you deal with the stress? When you figure it out, please let me know. No.
I was wondering why she was about to die last year.
Yeah, this time of year last year, I was pretty stressed because I was getting ready to go film the competition, and I had a lot to do in a very small amount of time. Do pack your patience through the casting process, because it can be weeks in between hearing back from them, waiting to see if you get moved forward into the next round. And generally, if you don't make it, you will not hear back from them. So I would say give it a good 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even a month, depending on what stage of the process you're in, to hear back from them, unless you know when the shooting date is, and then you'll be able to tell a little bit better how long it should be between interactions. When are the breaks? Do you guys get meal breaks? So yes, they do provide meals for us. Again, allergies, they take that into consideration when you're ordering lunch and dinner. And yes, you do get breaks for lunch and dinner. Again, it is provided. You also get a stipend if you are not on set, so or you're only there for half a day. They will give you a stipend for food outside of the set. Are you paid at all travel, hotel, meals? So yes, they do pay for all of your travel, whether you're flying or driving. They will either pay for your flights or give you money for gas. They do pay for your hotel while you were staying for your shooting days. And like I said, they provide meals on set, or they will give you a stipend for days that you are not on set, because you will have travel on either your first day and your last day, and they will give you money to help get you from point A to point B. What about the heat? So the first show that I did, it was extremely hot on set. We had modeling chocolate. We could just touch it and it would start to melt, because it was just so soft. So we kind of struggled with that. And doing any kind of chocolate work on that set would have been very difficult. So kind of make contingency plans on how you're going to put something together. So for us, because it was gingerbread, it was 3D. I very, very blatantly stayed away from using chocolate to put my piece together, because I didn't know if it would be hot on set. My previous experience said yes, it probably would be. And under all of those lights, it can be. Plus, we were shooting in September. It was very hot. And if it's raining outside, it may be humid on set. You also have to take that into consideration if you're working with isomalt or something that's very perceptive to the humidity. So I just stuck with our normal royal icing in hopes that it wasn't going to be too humid for it not to set, but we didn't have any problems with that. That all worked out very well for us. It was not hot on the set. It was just fine, because we were in long sleeves, in fact. The shirts that they had us wear were long, of the wardrobe that we took with us. The long sleeves were the ones that we ultimately ended up wearing, and I wasn't too hot on set. I think I would have been very, very hot on the first one I was on if I was in long sleeves, but this time it wasn't so bad. Do they let you test bakes to get used to the ovens, especially if it's a home bake competing and they don't use convection ovens? So no, we did not get to test anything in the ovens. I think that's kind of a testament to some of your skill set, is to if you can pivot to what's given to you on set, because you don't know where anything is, you don't know how the equipment's going to behave, you don't know how the oven's going to work. We did have access to like a standard home range, so we had just kind of a normal oven. We also had convection ovens and a stove top to be able to cook anything if we needed, like melt butter, which I think we made brown butter, so Dina needed to use the stovetop to make the brown butter. Microwaves, there's heat lamps for isomalt work, there's all kinds of refrigerators, and there's a really well-stocked pantry. It's kind of fun to get to go play in that pantry. I wish we'd been given time to just play, but they're on a pretty tight schedule. They shoot the episodes back to back to back, and sometimes kind of even overlapping, so there's really no extra time in between for fun like that. Is the timing real? Like 2 hours, is 2 hours really 2 hours start to finish? So I'm going to say yes. The first one that I was on, we had a time clock, so we could see how much time was left. The second one, we did not have a time clock, and we were not allowed to have phones or watches on set. So I really have no idea what time we started and what time we finished. So they could have fudged it a little, I don't know.
But you had breaks in between, though.
And we had breaks in between. So we could kind of tell how much time had passed from when we started to lunch and then from lunch to dinner. And it was about the right amount of time. Again, it's kind of hard to, they do say go. There is a point where you have to go, and there's a point where you have to stop. And you hope that you're finished when you stop, because that lasts about 10 to 15 minutes of huge flurry of activity of making sure everything is on your board. And they'll make sure that you, so like in this instance, we had to have our board covered, edge to edge, 4 feet, side to side. Had to make sure it's covered in something, fondant, cotton candy, royal icing, whatever it took, get it covered. And so we were all scrambling to make sure that our boards were covered at the very last minute. I knew going in like what we were going to do for our board, but I think one of the other teams didn't, and they were scrambling at the last minute to make sure that they had their board completely covered, because that was actually one of the rules that we had to follow, was making sure that we had our board covered.
So they don't give you like every hour or every, like, in your case, 2 hours time, like it's been 2 hours.
No, they generally don't. They'll actually do some false. They'll have the judges like do false time calls, and they'll tell us like, these are not real. And then when you get down towards the end, those time calls they'll tell you these time calls are real. You know, be aware that yes, this is only 1 hour remaining, only 30 minutes, 15, etc. So you kind of know how much time you're working on it. You kind of don't. Like, again, it depends on your producers and how they run their set. So I think that's about all I have for you guys. I've gone a little more than an hour. So
One more question.
Someone has one more question. Yes.
Sorry. What about when they're the persistent questionings? How do you deal with that when they're coming over and trying to bug you while you're working?
You just gotta roll with the punches when the producers come over to ask you what you're working on. Just pretty much explain exactly what you're working on. Right now I'm adding decorative detail to the upper tier of my fairy tale castle, so that I can get this completed and move on to the next step. It's something like that.
And they coach you?
And yeah, they give you some coaching so that you kind of know what to say. And there's more that you will do later in the what do you call it? Like a diary room type session. We're just sitting in front of the camera and doing it after the fact. So you have to go through a lot of those sessions as well. So just something, because like when you see these shows, you see that they're either on set or then they'll cut to them kind of sitting in front of like either a green screen or have some sort of backdrop behind them, where they're at, like they're answering or talking about exactly what they're working on at that moment. They're showing the film and it's just your voice, so you kind of do a voiceover type thing. Or they'll cut to you in the room where you were filming that little piece of it. Usually during introductions and that sort of thing, when they're introducing all the different contestants. Okay, so I think I'm going to let you guys go. I think Kim's done with her questions.
I was just giving everyone else more time to ask questions. But
Sure you were. Thanks for that. Everyone appreciates it. All right, thanks you guys so much for tuning in. Again, if you were watching this on a replay, please put replay in the comment section if you have a question, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Bye!